There's a place that I know, it's where all the sunshine goes, the brightest spot along the highway 1, a city where you always know someone. Hey, hey, where's it at? Hey, 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 Medicine Hat.
Hello and welcome to Helping Hatters. Today we have with us Krystal, and she's going to more or less introduce herself, and maybe also while you do a little intro, you can add your connections to Medicine Hat. That'd be great.
Hi, my name is Krystal Jannelle Hrynkiw. I work as the self-love witch, so that means I help women and gender diverse people learn how to fall in love with themselves by way of trauma-informed care, but also by way of ritual and a little bit of magic. I was born in Medicine Hat, actually, and moved to Manitoba for most of my childhood, and then moved back when I was 17, and then moved away again for a brief period of time, and then I've been back since about 2008.
Okay, so quite a journey away, but then lots of time spent in Medicine Hat.
Yes.
And you would call it home?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Lovingly?
Most of the time.
Yes.
Yes.
More than your home was in Manitoba?
Absolutely. Yes.
So it takes the cake.
It does. Yes.
And what do you love about Medicine Hat?
I love that it's a safe place to raise my kids. I have 4, so that's really, really important. And I love that there's a lot to enjoy here as far as like walking paths and coffee shops, which is why we're currently in a coffee shop, and the capacity to make like authentic connections, right? Like the people here are just really good people.
Mm-hmm. And it's a small enough but big enough community that like there's always someone new to meet, but there's also this simplicity to saying hello and forming some kind of connection.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I like about the size of Medicine Hat. It's perfect.
Yeah, it's easy.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Perfectly easy.
Perfectly easy. You know, I can know that I have to run all the way across town, but it's only going to take me 20 minutes.
Hard facts.
Yeah.
25 if there's traffic.
Exactly, you know, which is helpful because I'm a busy mom and an entrepreneur, and, you know, I need to be able to get everywhere quickly some days. But it's also really helpful for the fact that I know so many people that can help,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I have so many friends that are willing to, you know, step up or watch the kids if need be, or, you know, do anything that's needed to kind of be there. So
Mm-hmm. That is the beauty of the tight-knit spaces that we live in.
absolutely.
And you have a family, you are a mom, you're also a wife,
I am.
and that's a job sometimes too.
Yeah. Well,
But your favorite?
it is my favorite. It is my 3rd time being a wife.
3rd time's the charm.
3rd time's the charm. Yes.
We'll end it there.
We'll end it there.
What else could you tell me about what you do to help people?
I think the biggest thing that I do is to help people see their truth, because I think a lot of the ways that we're brought up in the world, a lot of the messages that the world puts out to us, makes it really hard to see our own radiance and how amazing we are. And I think what I do, what my work is to shine a light on that, or shine a light on the path to that, so that people can find their way to it.
And who is the kind of clientele you work with normally? Or if there is no norm?
I work with all kinds of people. I have clients who are in their early 20s, which, not gonna lie, I'm a little jealous of, because I'm like, if I would have had this kind of support in my early 20s, things would have been way different for me.
Right.
But, you know, that's amazing for them, and I love that. And I also have clients who are like postmenopausal
Hmm.
and have been married for 4 years and are over it and tired of doing everything for everyone, and everyone in between. I work with moms who, are struggling to find their sense of self. I work with people who are single, who want to learn how to make their mark on the world and to really like stand in their truth and their authenticity. And I work with people who have struggled and endured a lot of trauma and are trying to find their way out of that.
Hmm. Which could pretty much be anyone and everyone.
Anyone, yeah. And then all those like identities intersect and intermingle. And
So is there anyone you don't really willingly work with that's not your jam per se?
I don't work with cisgendered men.
That's fair.
Yeah.
So a little bit of I don't know this way of life, therefore I maybe can't help you as much as someone else could.
Yes, there's that. There's also like all of my training is specific towards women and people who are assigned female at birth. And also like my soul's calling of these are the people I'm here to help.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's nice when you can, my life coach always said, niche it down till it hurts, like till you like really feel that resonate.
Yeah.
It's nice to hear that you've whittled it down.
Yeah.
I'm sure it took some time.
It did.
How long has this journey been for you?
I started by teaching yoga.
Classic.
Right? Everybody starts there, I think. It's like everyone takes
Me
the teacher
too.
training and it like rocks
save
their
the world.
world. Yeah. And they're like, oh my God. And then I taught yoga for a couple of years and I was like, this is not the way.
Mhm.
Right? It's a way, but it doesn't take me as deep as I want to go with. Yoga as a practice is not surface level at all. Yoga, the way it's presented in the Western world, is very surface.
Mhm.
And I didn't want to present yoga that way, but when I tried to present it any other way, nobody came to my
That's fair.
class. So I started studying Ayurveda, which also showed me some of the hurts and some of the things that that people can struggle with. But the foundational piece of Ayurveda is that all disease begins in the mind.
Hmm.
So again, I was like, not deep enough. So then I started studying trauma-informed care and coaching. This is it. This is where I need to be. This is listening to the wisdom of the body and understanding the way trauma shows up in people's lives. This is the way.
Mm-hmm. So yoga was the gateway to get you in the door to figuring out there's something between this mind, body, and soul that is connected.
Yes.
Because I fell into yoga, and it was 6.5 years of teaching it at a gym nonetheless. So totally different vibe, which was okay for me as a gym teacher and teaching in a gym. People just had a different standard, and I just did my own thing anyways, and it just seemed to work until it didn't anymore. And COVID, changed lots of people's ways of how they existed and made work, and it became work too. So I like the idea of, as much as we can, connecting all the parts of ourselves. And that's what you help us foster, initiate, encourage, hold people's hand along the path.
All of the above, I think.
Yeah. So what does a client do when they want your services?
Usually, this is what I notice is people will start following me on social media, and then I'll get a message on like, what is coaching all about? And then they kind of look at what it involves, and then it's a couple months will go by because it takes people time to digest, right? And there's also a financial investment in this kind of stuff too. And so sometimes people have to figure that out, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But I think the people that are really excited or like feel that yes in themselves come back. Right? And sometimes it's a few conversations, a bit of an email back and forth. Sometimes people have a lot of questions. It can take 2 or 3 months for someone to say like, okay, I'm ready.
Yeah.
You know, we also do what I call a connection call, which I offer to everyone at no charge. Like, if you're interested in working with me, let's talk to each other. So we'll jump on a Zoom and kind of see if we vibe. Some people, it's just not, we don't click, right? There's going to be some things that come up that I'm like, actually, I'm not sure if you're ready. So maybe you want to go see a trauma therapist, because I'm not a trauma therapist. That's not my line of work. It's beyond my scope of practice. So sometimes I do have people reach out for, trauma therapy, but that's not what I do. So I lovingly refer them to the organizations within Medicine Hat that do that kind of work.
Right.
And then sometimes they come back to me after they've done some of that work, and then they say, I'm ready for you now, and they come back. So that's really beautiful.
That is beautiful. That's the word I was thinking. That's so great. And what do sessions look like once they are your client?
I'm really firm on sessions being co-created. So I don't have a set, these are our 10 sessions and this is what we're going to do. We're going to, work on some somatic work, and we're going to study your nervous system, and then we're going to deal with your inner child, and then we're going to deal with mother wounds. Like, that's not how I roll at all. My sessions are really intuitively guided, but also based really deeply in knowledge of trauma-informed care, and the coaching methodology that I studied. And it goes from there. So if you were to come to me and say, this is what's going on today, I'll say, okay, do you want to explore that? And as long as it feels doable, then we will. Sometimes people come in and it's too much, right? They don't feel ready. It's too big. So I like to say I'm good at working around the big stuff. Because sometimes once we work around the big stuff, sometimes the big stuff, we see it from a lot of different perspectives, and then it becomes not so big.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. So I like that approach.
Circling the mountain.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden the mountain is just a pile of dirt.
So it shifts perspective and seems like a doable task to talk about, conquer,
Yeah,
and move forward.
exactly.
That's cool. So the average client you have, how long would you say they are your client? Besides probably for life, really, some sort of connection is probably built.
Yeah. So I have, once a client has seen me for 12 sessions, so I really notice, because somatically based work is slow, right? You'll notice a shift after 3 or 4 sessions, but if you really want to get deep, like it's usually about session 8 where people come in and they're like, guess what? Everything's different, and they're really excited. It's almost always session 8,
right,
that happens. After people do 12 sessions with me, I graduate them to what's called the legacy client program. So before that, coaching is only available in packages. So you purchase your package, you see me every 2 weeks, we do 12 sessions. After that, the legacy clients get a bit of a discount, and they only have to see me once a month. And they don't have to purchase a package. So it's pay as you go, as long as they want to kind of stay in it. I have clients who have been with me for, it's probably over 2 years now for some of them.
Oh, wow.
Because they love being able to have that kind of grounding place to come to, and to connect with, to run things by. Sometimes the sessions are really deep for, even after working with me for a year and a half, something really, really big comes up and there's some deep inner child work to do around it. Otherwise, sometimes it starts off seeming simple and then it ends up going really deep, because after people work with me for that long, they know their stuff, they know their body, they know their inner wisdom. Sometimes they just aren't quite sure how to get there. So I really love to be able to give people the tools to do the work on their own. And what I notice often is legacy clients will come and they say, I tried this, but I can't quite get there. So I need to be guided, or it would be supportive to be guided in this way. But very often I also get, guess what I did? Because you taught me X, Y, and Z, and I was able to navigate this challenge.
Yeah.
Which is amazing.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So you're giving them the tools, also, well, and teaching them how to use it, as well as a huge support to be able to lean into and call, text, whatever, email you to say, I think I need you to help me along this.
Yeah.
And you're like, yes, please.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So your vision for where this takes you, like you're helping other people.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're helping yourself along the way, because I'm not sure the work's ever done. Like there's 18 years of childhood, teenage stuff built up. And we could say we all have some variations of trauma lingering within there. So you're helping people deal with that, empower them. And at the same time, you're empowering yourself, and you're fairly new into this real self-loving witch kind of world. Tell me about how things were maybe before you got into this, how you got into it, and maybe if we get to the question answering of where you go from here.
Well,
You might need to.
I need a little drink here. So before I started doing this work, I worked as a bartender. That was my life. I was solo parenting the vast majority of the time. And when I say solo, I mean in a relationship, but the default parent, right? So not single, but solo.
Right.
And working nights till 3, 4, 5 in the morning, come home, stay up, send kids to school, go to sleep for a few hours, wake up, do it all over again. Right? If I was lucky, some days I was off work early at like midnight, right? So I wasn't taking care of myself. I lived on cigarettes and chicken wings, Diet Coke and coffees. I didn't eat regular meals. I was a hot mess, to be very, very honest. And I didn't know there was another way, right? I didn't know there was a way of life that felt easeful and joyful. And I just always felt struggle. And I always felt like I was fighting against who I wanted to be versus who I thought I was supposed to be. And then I decided I wanted to try yoga. It took me 6 months of driving past the same yoga studio on my way to work. So I finally went, right?
That's brave.
It was brave. And I fell in love immediately. To me, yoga felt like dancing with my soul. I was like, yeah, this is it. It made all the voices and the monsters in my head be quiet. And it was my medicine. Right. And I dove headfirst. And then we've already talked about, eventually that led to yoga teacher training, and through all of my other work. I have been coaching now for about 3 years.
Okay.
2.5 to 3 years. And I've realized that in that time of coaching, I was really trying to find my identity as a coach. So I started off as a sexual empowerment coach, and then I was just an empowerment coach. And then I was a wildness embodiment coach for a bit. And then I went back to just women's empowerment coach. And nothing fit.
Right. You were dabbling with what?
Yeah. Like, what's my identity here in this work? And then I finally realized through meditation and ritual that it all starts with self-love. You don't feel empowered if you don't feel you love yourself. You can't embrace your sexuality and your sexual self if you don't love yourself. Nothing. And through all of it, right, through all of my practices, it's always about getting to the source, right? What is the root? Where do we need to start so that everything else can fall into place? It's kind of been the theme of my learning, I guess, right? And I am a witch, right? And I learned that I can bring those two things together. I can bring all of the science and all of the knowledge that I have together with my intuitive wisdom, with my ancestral wisdom, and I can marry those things together.
Is that what witch means to you? Like, how could you define that? Because it's a word that scares people.
It does
It
scare
scared
people.
me when I first was like, oh, I like the idea of what I've seen as of a new age witch. You I met recently.
Yeah.
And you seem like you're a helper. You're trying to help people. So, and I think it is linked to tapping into that inner wisdom and knowing and feeling the guiding compass.
Yeah.
And listening to it.
And listening.
It's a powerful part.
That's a big part of it, I think. Which is a really complex identity. And part of it for me is rooted in connecting to nature, living by the rhythms of nature, which is really supportive for my nervous system, for my overall well-being, everything. It's also supportive to I am nature, right? And it supports my connection to myself, which also means that I reject patriarchy and any conditions placed on me by the patriarchy, going back, generations to when witches were burned, which also means wise woman. If you go back to the etymology of the word, it's wise woman. And I think that really embracing that innate wisdom that I think all women and people who were socialized as girls have is that capacity to kind of tap into a source of knowing. And that was taken from us,
And told it was evil and bad.
And crazy.
Yeah. And you should more or less die because of you tapping into that. And a lot of it was, again, helping, healing, and being that like motherly type to all sorts of people.
Yeah.
So the patriarchy means mostly the masculine mind of maybe we know better than others know about themselves. Maybe as a general way to nicely put it.
Yeah.
I'm sure you have your own words.
I have my own words that written there, but
so you do talk about it in your book.
I do talk about it in my book, yes.
So if you want to read more, that's a good place.
Yeah.
So with all your learnings, all the ways of knowing that you've come to embrace and want to share with everyone else, a new calling came upon you, and you were empowered by a certain somebody maybe to get down this path, as well as a group, which now I'm a part of. So I know more about it. Yes. But maybe you could tell the viewers a little bit more about how Krystal ends up self-publishing a book.
Oh man, it's been such a ride. So I've always wanted to be a writer, always, since I was, probably 12, 13, right? My English teachers loved me in school because I was all about the essays and the everything. And then life happens, and I had a baby at 20, and then I had another baby, and then you just kind of forget about what you want when you're a mom. And then I was in this group coaching program, um, and I was trying to sort out why a program that I had created didn't run, and I thought it was brilliant, right? Like I was so pumped about this program that I put together, and I put feelers out into the world, and there was some excitement. But then as soon as I opened registration, nothing, nobody signed up, and I was like, what is happening? And again, just sitting with myself, meditation, listening to the guidance, to my own intuition, which I probably already knew the answer to. It was supposed to be a book. It was never supposed to be a group coaching program, or not yet supposed to be a group coaching program. So I started writing. And I started in February of this year, 2024. And it is the end of November as we're recording this. And my book launches on November 30th.
Yay.
Very exciting.
And I'm reading it right now. Thank you for trusting me with this and letting me give you some feedbacks as well. The teacher in me is like, and no red pen. And you are sharing your wisdom in, like you said earlier, that science meets spirituality, intuition, and you're going to guide people with both ways of knowing because they can align. And I think part of the past ways of teaching was they stay in their own lane. They don't overlap. They don't work together. They're totally different. So your book really helps whoever's going to read it, which I'm saying I'm only a third of the way through, but you should read it and find out for yourself what the empowerment you're offering to people. Because it's a guidebook. It has journal prompts. It has rituals that people can partake in, but you can also pick and choose.
Yeah.
Right? So tell me a little bit about how the process from start of this year till now, how it's gone for you. What you've noticed as great things, maybe some of the barriers along the way, or at least tripping hazards for sure.
Yeah. Writing is not for the faint of heart, that's for sure. Even though the writing part actually came very easily to me, I sat and wrote. And I will say that I channeled it all, right? This is not from me. This is from source. Right? Because I'm a witch, it's a gift that moved through me to paper. And amazing. But I noticed when I was struggling with anything in my life, it wasn't there. So during the summer, I took probably almost 2 months off where I hardly wrote anything because I couldn't connect to my knowing because I let my mind get in the way. And I thought, who are you to write about attachment theory? You're not an expert.
Right.
And then I finally convinced myself. I sat in a class with someone, and this person said, and I was sharing about, my imposter syndrome and how dare I write this. And she said, this is something that I've learned in a class that I'm taking, is that if you have lived experience in an area and you're at least 2 steps ahead of the people that you're trying to teach, then you're good.
Yeah.
You're good. You can, and that broke the ice for me, and the rest of it came really, really easily. I noticed in the first part of my book, I had to do a lot more editing than in the final probably 4 chapters. Kind of as I was finding my groove, my voice, how I wanted this to sound. I wanted it to be me,
Mhm.
but also to be, professional and to be as if, I know what I'm talking about.
Right. But be honest and true to yourself and your
Yeah.
voice. You're right, because you use some colorful language.
I do.
It's in
It's a
there.
part of me.
This is not PG book. But it's the real deal if you want to explore that.
Yeah.
So what is the title and why did you pick that title?
The title of the book is Hot Mess Empress.
Empress.
Yes. And it is about learning to love yourself, no matter if you're a hot mess or you're feeling like an empress,
Mhm.
and that the two things can exist simultaneously. I think it's really important for us to know that, because there's conflicting messages in our world, right? Where it's like, be authentic, but also your social media has to only show the perfect parts of you, right? Your body has to be a certain size. You have to show up in the world as a certain way. And I think it's nonsense.
Mhm.
And so the idea of being a hot mess empress is loving yourself through the hard days, through the days where you feel like a mess, where you're having panic attacks, because that's what happens for me,
Mhm.
right? I am an anxious person.
Yeah.
I have panic attacks. Even now, sitting here, I had one last week. So, none of us have everything together in this neat little bundle where being a human is messy.
So messy.
It is so messy. And I think it is time that we learn that being messy is okay. It's actually kind of hot.
And important to
Yeah.
lean into that, because
Exactly.
that owns the parts of you, all parts. And like you said earlier, it's bringing those all together. We're all sitting around the table. We all can be heard and seen. That
Mhm.
doesn't mean, anger drives the bus all the time or
Exactly.
whatever it is, or fear,
Yeah.
those parts of ourselves that we kind of give in. And part of what I've learned about life and humaning the last year is we have a lot of case of learned helplessness
Mhm.
coupled with people pleasing. So you marry those two together and life's not fun for you.
No.
But that's kind of what we're taught.
Yeah.
Showing the way. This is how it's been, this is how it's
Mhm.
going to be, status quo kind of shenanigans.
Yeah.
So you're here to say no, not no more
Exactly.
for anyone. And I'm going to help show you the way.
Yeah.
And fall in love, most importantly, with yourself first. Because if you can't love yourself, love anyone else.
Mhm.
I think that's how the saying goes.
Mhm.
Right? So, what are some cool things that came up in here that you're excited for the reader to be like, oh,
Um, so the book walks the reader through the process that I use with my clients, right? So when we're learning to fall in love with ourselves, and I think it's important to remember that it's a skill. Nobody taught us. I mean, if you grew up in the 80s and 90s like we did, nobody said, "Oh, love yourself. You're amazing." That didn't happen for us. And so we're over here, some of us trying to raise children and teach them the things that we didn't know, but we don't know how to do it for ourselves, right? So the first thing is understanding why it feels hard to love you, right? That's what the first part is called, which is all about self-acceptance. And in that, I talk about this is the way your nervous system works, which is a big reason why you feel so uncomfortable being you a lot of the
and
time.
mildly or heavily crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. This is what trauma does to you. This is how it shows up. These are what triggers are. It's how to navigate them, right? These are your parts, which are really important. I think understanding parts work is kind of a big foundation to sometimes it resonates for people. Sometimes people ask me, are like, is that real? Like, did I actually access that part or am I a little crazy? I'm like, no, it's real. It's real. It's a really widely used therapy modality. The second part of the book is about self-trust. So when we accept where we are, this is why I am the way I am, right? This is why I show up in the world. This is why I'm really reactive. This is why I freeze and can't respond when I'm in a conflict and I just cry. When we understand that, and we're like, oh, we have compassion for ourselves, and then we get less judgy about who we are as people. We can't heal when we're judging ourselves. Impossible. Really, really impossible. So then we move on to self-trust, because during all of this over here, when we're, really messy and our nervous system is going off all over the place and your inner child is running everything, we don't trust ourselves.
Right.
Right. And so acceptance tends to be relatively easy for people to get to. And they're like, okay, your logical brain, our human brains love to know why. Right. So we give your brain the why. But then self-trust comes in, and that's hard.
Yeah.
Because we have fawning patterns or hyper-independence patterns where we don't trust ourselves or other people. We have attachments, right? Our attachment style, the way we relate to other people is really, really big part of that. Setting boundaries. So I talk about boundaries in the book, attachment theory, and emotional intelligence. Because a big part of learning to trust yourself is also knowing how to relate to your emotions when they come up. Right. What do I do when I'm angry? Why am I so afraid of being angry? Why am I so uncomfortable when my partner talks to someone else, right? What's that jealousy about?
So getting to the root.
Yeah. Like, how do you explore your invitation or your emotions and meet them as teachers? Because they're really, really brilliant teachers to show us where we're at and the parts of us that we need to heal, right? So those are the things we talk about when we're talking about self-trust. And then we get into the fun stuff, which is self-discovery and self-devotion. Discovering who you are after you've kind of dealt with all this can be really, really different from who you thought you were.
Right.
Right? Maybe you thought, so here's this, I thought I was someone who loved gardening and entertaining large groups of people and cooking for days at a time, when it turns out that those were things that I took on to distract myself from how unhappy I really was, right? People would praise me for them, and then I felt validated and felt a sense of self-worth. When in actuality, as much as I am a witch and I love nature, I do not want to grow my own peas.
Right.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I'll put a few herbs out on the deck, but I'm good.
Keep it pretty simple.
Yeah. That's not my jam. Entertaining? No.
Yeah.
No, thank you. We purposely bought a dining table when my wife and I moved, that can only fit like us and my kids.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah.
There's no entertaining. So maybe you're not a yoga chick. Maybe, you went to yoga because all your friends went to yoga, but you actually love dirt biking. Right? Yeah. That could be your jam.
Totally.
So giving yourself the space to try new things and discover it, and that facilitates self-trust, right? The more you say yes, the more all of you, your whole being is like, ooh,
right.
We get to really be who we want to be now. We get to try this. She doesn't care what we're up to.
Well, and letting go of what the outside world has kind of inundated us with, or told us these are the parameters you can play within. Pick one of these three: teacher, nurse, like keep it, stay-at-home mom, whatever, like the options back in our days were seemingly a little slim. And I remember wanting to be an Olympic athlete so bad. That got crossed off my list, not because necessarily just being a woman, but not having a hardcore great skill at one specific thing. To the gym teacher.
Yeah.
So with that, we have to cross some no's off the list. Absolutely. And start to learn what our yeses
are. Yeah. And then when we find those things, they become an act of self-devotion. Right? When you lean into the things that bring you enough joy, and then all of a sudden one day you're in it and you're doing these things that you love, and you realize you're doing it because you love yourself, right? It's just like a light bulb that goes off one day and you're like, I did it. I got here.
Yeah. And it feels good.
Yeah.
But is there a part I'm not fully realized, and I'm sure you're not yet either, but where we still tiptoe, like something bad's around the corner, or have we actually got this figured out?
Yeah. I think the healing is never done. Particularly inner child healing is never done, and I think that's a big part of our work. But I think there's also just the biology of our nervous system that's always looking for a perceived threat. Right? This could be dangerous. Your nervous system registers anything that's unfamiliar as a threat. So our work is to be able to like lean into those unfamiliar things and be like, I'm okay here. This is doable.
Yeah.
I can move through this. But sometimes it's going to not be doable. And we have to let that be okay too. Right? There is courage in both the yes and the no.
Right. And trying and saying, I tried.
Yeah, it's not my jam.
Maybe it's not for me. Yeah. And that's okay.
Exactly.
I feel like I'm dabbling in the realms and just trying to figure out what it is, what I am meant to bring forth to others, truly. And like you said, it has to start with some of this inner work to get rid of the, for lack of a better word, demons that hold us down and keep us pinned in a certain mindset or way of being, or showing up in the world scared and just wanting to fit in. It's quite a struggle. I'd say yes.
I would say yes. It's something I talk about a lot in the book too, is unraveling that conditioning and recognizing when parts of you are saying yes just to like not raise a fuss or to not be the difficult one, and realize, do I actually believe this? Right? So there's conditioning we come away from our family of origin with, and sometimes it's really simple. I think in the book I use the example of like using the same dish soap that your mom bought.
Right.
You know?
That's all you know.
Yeah, like this is what we use.
Yeah.
Right? And oh my gosh, if you have to try something else, it's like, whew.
Or somebody questions why you use it.
Yeah.
And then you have to then question why you use
Why
it.
do I use this
Do I
soap?
need to switch the soap?
Is there a better one? Yeah. It can be life-changing. But there's also things like your belief system and your values. And are you just going along with it? Because that's how your family votes or thinks or what have you. But does it really fit for you?
So trying to build for yourself, which some of it can stay, some might have to go, of what beliefs and values are your core pillars that you're saying, I now know this to be true for myself, versus having it just passed along to me. And that's part of our intergenerational work, kind of like change for the future.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a few things you can toggle and make your life as well as everyone around you, let alone potential your own ancestors in the future, get some better deals in life and actually empower them to want to evolve and improve for themselves as well as their community members. Exactly. So with this journey, and you're kind of coming to the like end of a whole book, but is there another book? What comes after November 30th?
There is another book, and it is already brewing, and I've really had to pull back from like starting it, because once I put pen to paper, I know it'll pour out, and I don't know what I want it to be yet. I know what it's going to be called. I have the title. I know it's going to be something about your life after separation and divorce, because I've been there a couple times.
Maybe no.
So I think that's going to be the focus. But as I've learned with this book, it can change. Like I knew this was going to be the focus, but when I actually like mapped out my chapters, they're very different from what I ended up with. Right? I intended on having a whole chapter on like caregiver wounds and like mother-father wounds, which ended up being attachment theory instead, because that felt more tangible, more relevant, not more relevant. I felt more accessible.
Yes.
Yeah.
So another book. You are an
Yes,
author.
I am
You
an
can say
author.
that
I
now.
can say it
That's
now.
pretty cool. You're speaking to a future author is my dream too, and I felt the calling for a year and being like, I want to write a book.
Mm,
And then I realized all my journaling is a lot of that foundation that I want to lean into, and just again, it's going to evolve a whole lot from once I actually start to dive into the process like yours. And I'm sure I feel like I'm pre doing the imposter syndrome, but I bet you did it too. And then you set off and said, yeah. And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden it hit you again. Maybe this isn't what I should be doing. And
mhm.
then you get a little scared, and the fears and the anxieties all creep in. But you powered through. You have the book. It's fantastic. People are going to hopefully find nuggets that are going to work for them. And if you look in anything, you can find ways to learn and grow.
Mhm.
That's a fact. I truly
Absolutely.
believe that. So if they read it, they will evolve, I believe, even just reading those words. So I love that you're going to continue that journey. What else do you maybe foresee as future Krystal endeavors into 2025 or like in the next 5 years? Like, how far are you envisioning the future?
Yeah.
Or are you living the one
Um,
day at a time kind of
no.
vibe?
Um, it's interesting because I used to just kind of power through my life one day at a time, right? I would like, oh, I really wish this could happen, but never do anything to take action to make it happen. Um, and I think it's really important to like take action. Like we can do all the manifesting work we want and all the healing around money wounds that we want. But if you're not doing your work, like it's not gonna happen. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The universe needs to see you reciprocating what they're sending you. Um, but anyways, I love teaching. And so I really think that maybe around spring there might be a group coaching program called Hot Mess Empress in the works. I think it would be really supportive to kind of work through it in a group program. I think that would be really beautiful. I also really see myself speaking. I very often have images of myself speaking on stage in front of hundreds of people. So I don't know if it's an imagination or intuition or a little bit of both.
Yeah.
But I would love it.
Yeah. That'd be cool.
It would
And
be
I can
very
totally
cool.
see that. And I feel like I have those same, like, where is it? Is it just me projecting this idea? Or are my affirmations like really hitting home that all of a sudden it's like, that is a destination that we will eventually check off our list of things we've done and slayed, might I say. So with that, makes me curious about all sorts of avenues for your life. But you plan, like, medicine, that's your home. So, like, you can travel, you can do those things online, but you will always most likely, and you can't predict the future totally, but would you say that this is kind of like home base? This is where you come to feel grounded?
No.
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 You have a
Mountains.
pull. Mountains, fresh
are
air.
home, nature, trees.
Mhm.
So I grew up in Manitoba, and the one thing I struggle with here is like there's no trees. So I need
Well, there
to.
are trees. They're
Well,
just maybe
yeah,
not on a mountain, and
yeah,
less people in the
yeah.
mountains
I'm
too.
a cottage in the woods kind of witch,
Yeah.
and that will be my future when my kids are grown.
Mm-hmm.
And it's time for me to live in, that crone phase of my life where I'm not caretaking anyone else per
Mm-hmm.
se.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'll disappear into the woods.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. For you,
Yeah.
especially, who loves to like just walk barefoot on trails and up mountains, and that seems like a proper fit. But really, if you're sharing your wisdom with the world, one of the best ways that I've noticed people do it is by putting their words on paper
Mm-hmm.
and being able to put that out there, and then people will come that you didn't even necessarily like market to
Yeah.
or say like, please read my book. And you're going to build this whole little Empress Hot Mess Express, and it's kind of dauntingly exciting.
It is. That's a perfect way to describe it. I've considered like a hot mess Empress retreat. I think that might be amazing. I've considered like merch.
Mm-hmm.
I think, coffee mugs that say hot mess Empress on them
Right.
would be pretty epic.
Yeah.
Or hoodies or whatever, I think this can go a lot of places, but the biggest thing is that it helps people.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I felt a great need to get it out into the world in a way that's accessible to people. I know coaches who are like really high ticket coaches that charge, $500-$600, and not to say they're not worth it. But that's not where I landed my work.
Right.
Right. My work is to be accessible to anyone, and like the paperback will be $22. I think I hit the accessible mark.
Right.
Yeah. I like to do group coaching because often that is also more accessible than one-on-one coaching. So I always like to have like options for people to work with me. I think it's really important because I don't think our financial situation should have a bearing on our capacity to heal and expand into whatever we're supposed to be in this world. And I think it can be a barrier for a lot of people. And part of my work is how do I make this accessible? How do I support people, moms who are stuck at home with 3 little kids? They can't do a group coaching program. They sure probably can do one-on-one coaching,
Right.
but maybe they can read a book
and see where it goes from there.
Yeah.
And speaking of where it might go from there, or how they would maybe even stumble across your book, what is some of your social media website information?
My website is KrystalJannelle.com. My Instagram is at Krystal Jannelle, and Facebook is also Krystal Jannelle, the Self-Love Witch. I do have a TikTok. Don't use it a ton. I think I'm going to start using it more. But
It's the
it
wild
is also
world out
Krystal
there.
Jannelle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like maybe sometimes I feel super called to it. Other times I'm like, no, thank you.
Yeah, but lots of different ways to connect. And on your website is the option to be able to purchase the book directly, or how does that work for you?
I have links set up to Amazon for purchasing.
Perfect.
For now. I haven't decided if I'm going to deal with my own shipping yet, because that's the whole thing.
Right.
And I'm like, I am already paying Amazon to, well, not really paying, but they, take theirs off the top to ship it and do all the things. So
yeah, so that part's handled. But there is a place in town that might, or officially, people could find this book on the shelves.
River Bee Books is going to be carrying it. Bridget's a friend, and she's a beautiful human, and she so graciously has said yes. She also was one of my beta readers, so she's already read it as well.
Fantastic. So stamp of approval there, and it's right down the street from where we're at now.
It is.
Which has been your office, and I hear future book launch site.
Yeah.
So what's this place?
So we are at Station Coffee Company, and it is downtown Medicine Hat on 2nd Street. We're on 2nd Street, right? Yeah. And I wrote a good portion of Hot Mess Empress here, or edited it, or promoted it. It's been, I work from home, so every once in a while I get a little stir crazy and I need a coffee. And so I come down here and I find a quiet spot and put my headphones in, and I'll just work away for a couple hours.
And it's a pretty cool vibe, and not your home where you can kind of get away from, I know I'm staring at like things that need to be vacuumed, cleaned, dealt with. So it's nice to have that separation, and it's a quaint space. So any other thoughts, questions as we finish things up here?
No, I don't think so.
No, we nailed it all.
I think we nailed it. We talked about all of the things, my work, my book, and
and who you are and where you came from and
Yeah.
where you're going potentially, and the sky's the limit. And that's exciting. Well, I appreciate having you on and learning more about you. We're actually quite new to each other. Like, we met online. A mutual friend of ours who's in the previous episode, Emery Christie, kind of has been mentioning you, and like, she's a huge promo for you. She's amazing and definitely has so much good things to say about your work and who you are as a person and where you're going. And she's like, connect with her. And I was like, what? Just like, hey, we should hang out. So you offered trauma-informed care for practitioners kind of workshop in May, I believe it was, that I was like, and again, affordable because it was a group rate and kind of a newer launched entity you were working on. And so learned a lot about what trauma is and how to be a little more mindful of it. And then I did a second round of that last month, I believe, with you again, which had evolved into something even cooler. And here we are, and you're on my podcast.
Yeah.
Wild how things can just, and you're showing me how to write and self-publish a book.
Yeah.
Which for me is such an amazing tool for me to be able to lean into what you've already learned for yourself. And not saying I'm going to do it the exact same way, but it's really nice to have somebody else's like, oh, this is what I learned the hard way.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you for that too. Yeah. And good luck with everything. I have high hopes for you, and I think it'll be all wonderful. Thanks for being a helping hatter and helping everyone you can.
Thanks for having me.
There's a place that I know, it's where all the sunshine goes, the brightest spot along the highway one, a city where you always know someone. Hey, hey, where's it at? Hey, 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 Medicine Hat. Sitting on the treaty 7 and 4, a sunny spot with an open door, a running river with a few coolies, and the 88 Olympic teepee. Hey, hey, would you look at that? Hey, 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 Medicine Hat. Oh, its roots run deep, a stomping ground of community, a sunny city where you always matter. We call it Hatters Helping Hatters, Medicine Hat. Hop in a hot air balloon, rise up, you'll enjoy the view. Don't forget my Delta pottery, those bricks have history. Hey, hey, welcome back. Hey, 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 Medicine Hat. Oh, its roots run deep, a stomping ground of community, sunny city where you always matter. We call it Hatters Helping Hatters, Medicine Hat.
Helping Hatters was created, hosted, and produced by Misty Zanger and is a Mystified Productions podcast.